London, 1888. A city of empire, wealth, and shadows. In the narrow alleys of Whitechapel, the fog hides more than poverty. It hides a nightmare. A killer walks unseen, choosing his victims with silence and precision. His name will echo through history, whispered in fear for more than a century. This is not just the story of murder. It's the story of how one man's darkness changed the world forever. This is the legend of Jack the Ripper, the killer who vanished into the fog. Chapter 1. Birth of Fear London, 1888. The most powerful city in the world. Polished marble on the outside, rot and hunger underneath. Steam rises from the Thames, wrapping the East End in a fog so thick it swallows sound. Gas lamps flicker through it like dying stars. Whitechapel is the city's underbelly, crowded, filthy, alive with the struggle to survive. Men sleep standing up in lodging houses. Women walk the streets because there's no other work left. Tenements lean against one another like drunks. And somewhere in those labyrinth alleys, something begins to move. Quiet, deliberate, watching. At 3:40 a.m. on August 31st, a cart driver named Charles Cross stops his horse in Buck's Row. He thinks he sees a bundle of cloth on the pavement. Then he looks closer. It's Mary Ann Nichols. Her throat is cut twice, her abdomen opened, her eyes wide to the night sky. The constable who arrives can only whisper, "Dear God." No money missing. No struggle. Whoever did this knew exactly what he was doing. The newspapers explode. "The Whitechapel Horror," shouts the morning edition. Londoners devour every detail, and the story grows with every retelling. Some call it a lunatic, others a surgeon gone mad. The poor of Whitechapel call it something simpler, the devil in the fog. A week later, the devil strikes again. Annie Chapman, found behind 29 Hanbury Street. The same ritual precision, the same cruelty. Her body arranged, organs removed. A doctor testifying at the inquest says it could only be the work of a skilled hand, someone with surgical knowledge or the calm of a butcher. 2 women in 8 days, both slain before dawn, both mutilated. The pattern is born. Detective Inspector Frederick Abberline takes command of Scotland Yard's investigation. A sharp, stubborn man, already gray around the edges. He posts extra patrols, interviews dozens of suspects, combs through the lodging houses one by one. Nothing. The killer moves like smoke, seen by no one. By September, the entire East End is paralyzed. Women pair up to walk. Lodging keepers hammer extra locks to their doors. Policemen carry whistles between their teeth. The pubs stay open late because no one wants to walk home alone. Every sound in the fog could be footsteps. Every stranger's glance might hide a knife. Then, just before October, fear becomes hysteria. 2 murders, within an hour. The first body, Elizabeth Stride, discovered in a small yard off Burner Street. Her throat cleanly cut, but no mutilation. Perhaps the killer was interrupted. And before investigators can even finish sketching the scene, another scream echoes only streets away. Catherine Eddowes in Mitre Square, her face slashed, her abdomen torn open, 1 kidney gone. London wakes to horror, 2 murders in one night. The press coins the phrase, the double event. The Prime Minister demands answers. Police swarm the East End. Citizens arm themselves with clubs and lanterns. And then, as if taunting everyone, a letter arrives at the Central News Agency. "Dear boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. My knife is so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper." The letter, written in red ink, is splashed across front pages the next day. The killer finally has a name, and London has its legend. The murders continue to haunt the nights. Patrols triple, rewards are offered. People whisper prayers when the fog rolls in. Abberline walks the alleys himself, coat collar high, breath turning to steam. He studies every doorway, every shadow, knowing the man he hunts might be watching him in return. Then November 9th arrives. Mary Jane Kelly, just 25, found in her small room at Miller's Court. her body mutilated beyond recognition, the walls painted red. Even seasoned officers step outside to catch their breath. It is brutality beyond comprehension, and it is the last. After that, silence. No more letters, no more bodies. Just the echo of terror left behind. Abberline sits at his desk surrounded by reports, notes, maps, and questions. 5 women dead, hundreds interrogated. No arrests, no answers. The fog outside his window thickens until the gas lamps disappear completely. Jack the Ripper has vanished. Not into another country, not into prison, but into legend. And London, though it breathes again, will never sleep the same. Chapter 2. The streets run red. The morning after the double event, London feels sick. The fog is heavier than usual, the air sharper, and the city seems to whisper one name, Jack the Ripper. Children chant it in the streets. Newspaper boys shout it from every corner. It has become more than a murderer. It's a symbol of terror, a shadow every Londoner carries with them. Detective Frederick Abberline hasn't slept in days. He moves between police stations like a ghost, coat soaked with rain, eyes raw from candlelight. Every constable in the East End is on the streets, checking taverns, interviewing butchers, following leads that end in nothing. Scotland Yard's walls are covered with maps, pins, and blood-stained reports. Still, the killer walks free. The city is choking on fear. The East End's poor huddle together in gin shops. The wealthy clutch newspapers with trembling hands. London feels divided. Those safe in bright houses, and those trapped in the fog where the killer hunts. Parliament debates the murders. The Prime Minister demands results. The police can promise only guesses. Then a small brown parcel arrives for George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Inside, floating in a small jar of spirits, is half a human kidney, and a note, written in crude letters, from hell. Mr. Lusk, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. The other piece I fried and ate. Catch me when you can. The handwriting is shaky, the spelling poor, but the meaning clear. The Ripper is mocking them all. Doctors argue whether the organ is real, but the newspapers don't wait for proof. They print the letter in full, and London explodes again. Crowds surround police stations demanding protection. Vigilantes with clubs and lanterns patrol the alleys, calling themselves Ripper Watch. They catch drunks, thieves, anyone who looks foreign. Rumors turn to riots. Every night brings another false alarm, another chase into darkness. Still, the real killer moves unseen. Abberline begins to feel the case closing around him like a noose. He meets his men in narrow courtyards at dawn, muttering, "He was here, right here." They find footprints, blood drops, a torn apron, but never the man himself. The fog hides him as if it were his accomplice. Journalists, smelling profit, flood the slums. They write of a ghoul, a monster, a phantom surgeon. They invent details the police never said, turn rumor into evidence, and the killer into myth. Each new headline spreads panic, and the papers sell out by noon. By November, exhaustion sets in. Officers collapse from long shifts. Abberline loses weight. The city itself seems to sag beneath the weight of fear. But the Ripper isn't finished. On November 9th, 1888, in a tiny room at 13 Miller's Court, the nightmare reaches its peak. Mary Jane Kelly, just 25, is found murdered in her own bed. Her throat is cut, her face destroyed, her body dismembered beyond recognition. The walls are splattered with blood from floor to ceiling. Even hardened policemen step outside to be sick. Abberline whispers to no one, "This is the devil's work." Mary Jane Kelly is the last known victim. After her, the killing stops. No more letters, no more bodies, just silence, and questions that never end. For weeks, London waits for the next scream that never comes. Slowly, life creeps back into the streets. The pubs reopen, the newspapers move on to politics, but no one in Whitechapel forgets. Every alley still feels haunted. Every woman still looks twice over her shoulder before stepping into the dark. Abberline keeps the case open. He chases every whisper of a clue. Barbers with sharp knives, doctors with strange habits, sailors seen at odd hours. But the fog swallows everything. Witnesses vanish, suspects die, and the Ripper becomes a rumor again, slipping from man into myth. Christmas arrives. Snow covers the cobblestones, softening the stains the rain could not wash away. Children sing carols where blood once ran. And yet, beneath the church bells and laughter, fear lingers. A quiet question London never answers. How could a man carve horror into history and simply disappear? Jack the Ripper may be gone, but the streets he ruled are changed forever. The fog seems thicker, the silence deeper. The city has learned what it never wanted to know, that monsters don't always live in fairy tales. Sometimes they live right next door. Chapter 3: The Double Event. Autumn 1888. London's nights have grown colder, and the fog thicker than ever. Gas lamps flicker like dying eyes above the streets of Whitechapel. The murders have turned every shadow into a suspect, every stranger into a possible killer. The city's heart beats faster with every sound in the dark. The newspapers call him Jack the Ripper, and the name spreads like infection. He is no longer just a man. He's a myth with a knife. Parents whisper his name to frighten their children into staying home. The police whisper it with dread. And somewhere in the alleys, the man behind the myth is listening, smiling, sharpening his blade. September 29th, 1888, a Saturday night. Whitechapel is alive with noise. Pubs spill crowds into the streets. Drunks stumble through the fog. Laughter echoes between the walls. Among them walks Elizabeth Stride, a Swedish immigrant known by friends as Long Liz. She's tired, hungry, looking for shelter. Witnesses later say they saw her with a man in a dark coat and hat, his voice low, his grip firm. Moments later, both vanish into Berner Street. Just after 1 a.m., a carter named Louis Diemschutz turns his horse into the yard behind the International Working Men's Club. The animal balks. Diemschutz steps down, lifts his lantern, and freezes. Elizabeth Stride lies on the ground, her throat cut from ear to ear. The blood still flows, but her body otherwise untouched. The killer was interrupted. Before anyone can recover, before the police even finish measuring the scene, another cry pierces the night. Less than an hour later, less than a mile away. In Mitre Square, City Police Constable Edward Watkins swings his lantern around a corner and sees horror beyond imagination. Catherine Eddowes lies mutilated beyond recognition. Her face carved open, her abdomen slashed, one kidney missing. The marks are precise, deliberate, almost surgical. A piece of her bloody apron is found nearby, half missing. The other half will turn up later, discarded beneath a chalk message on a wall. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. The phrase is scrawled in haste, its meaning unclear. Superintendent Thomas Arnold, fearing riots against London's Jewish population, orders it erased before daylight. A single piece of evidence, wiped away forever. 2 murders in one night. The city wakes to pandemonium. "The double event!" scream the headlines. 2 dead, 2 police forces humiliated, and the killer still walking free. The East End explodes with rage and fear. The Home Secretary demands results. The Prime Minister demands action. Scotland Yard demands a miracle. Detective Abberline and his men are everywhere at once. They search lodging houses, question sailors, tail surgeons, examine knives, dissect rumors. Every theory collapses. Every lead dissolves in fog. The Ripper is always one step ahead, as if he knows their every move. And then, as if to prove he's watching, another letter arrives at the Central News Agency. Written in the same red ink as before, mocking the police. "I was not kidding, dear old boss, when I gave you the name. I love my work and want to start again soon. You'll soon hear of me and my funny little games." The letter is signed, Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. By now, London has turned madness into ritual. Men walk their wives home by lantern light. Vigilante groups patrol the alleys with sticks. Newspaper artists draw the killer as a demon in a top hat, his eyes glowing like fire. Fear has become entertainment. People buy maps of the murder sites as souvenirs. The Ripper has turned into the city's dark celebrity. But Abberline knows better. He walks the streets at night, coat collar up, scanning every face. He studies the timing of each murder, the direction of the bodies, the speed of escape. Whoever this man is, he moves with precision. A butcher's hand, a surgeon's calm. He kills quickly and vanishes like breath into cold air. Weeks pass, no arrests, no witnesses brave enough to testify. The police are drowning in false confessions. 30 men claim to be Jack the Ripper, all seeking attention or madness. The real killer says nothing. He doesn't have to. The city itself speaks for him now. By mid-October, a strange fatigue settles over Whitechapel. People grow used to living in fear. The fog rolls in every evening like a curtain over a stage that never closes. The murders have become part of life, like hunger or rain. But in a small office on the Thames embankment, George Lusk receives that ghastly package, the half-kidney, the From Hell letter. It is the Ripper's final signature on the terror he created. After that, silence. Weeks pass, no new bodies, no new letters. For the first time in months, London sleeps without waking to horror. But no one truly relaxes. Even the silence feels dangerous, like the pause before a storm. When Abberline looks at the city map pinned to the wall, he sees more than red marks. He sees a pattern, a mind at work. Someone who killed not for money, not for revenge, but for something darker: control, power, fear. The murders were messages, and now that the world is listening, he no longer needs to write them. The fog outside thickens again, wrapping around lampposts, hiding the cracks in the street. Somewhere beyond that fog, a man cleans his knife, folds his coat, and walks away into history. No one sees him leave. No one ever will. Chapter 4. Letters from Hell. Winter settles over London like a shroud. The air bites harder, the fog grows thicker, and the city trembles under its own silence. The murders have stopped, but the fear hasn't. People still lock their doors early. Women still walk only in pairs. The name Jack the Ripper is whispered like a curse, a story mothers tell to keep their children from wandering into the dark. But the killer's shadow lingers, not through blood now, but through words. After the double event, Scotland Yard becomes a fortress of paper. Letters arrive by the hundreds, some scrawled in drunken ink, others careful, deliberate, cold. Most are hoaxes, desperate men seeking fame or lunatics craving attention. But a few sound too real, too close, too confident. The first, now infamous, is the Dear Boss letter, where the name Jack the Ripper was born. But soon another arrives, written in a crude hand, each word trembling with madness. It reads, "From Hell. Mr. Lusk, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. I fried and ate the other piece. Catch me when you can. Inside the small box is half a human kidney preserved in spirits. Doctors study it in disbelief. Is it real? Could it be Catherine Eddowes' missing organ? Some say yes. Others argue it's a cruel prank. But the truth no longer matters. The city believes it, and that belief is enough to set London on fire again. George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, becomes a man hunted by his own fear. He sleeps with a revolver by his bed, jumps at every knock on the door, and tells friends, "If he wants me next, he knows where I live." The newspapers publish the letter, and London devours every word. The Ripper, they say, has found his voice. By now, the murders have become theater. Pamphlets appear in shop windows, promising true stories of the fiend of Whitechapel. Penny dreadfuls print his name in blood-red ink. Wax museums sculpt his shadow. Stage plays reenact the killings to packed audiences. The East End becomes a living museum of fear. Tourists come to see the doorways where women died, as if staring at ghosts through the fog. The police, meanwhile, are drowning. Hundreds of letters flood Scotland Yard. One promises another murder on Christmas Eve. Another claims to be the confession of a remorseful surgeon. Still another arrives in elegant cursive, declaring, "The game is done." I am satisfied. Each is filed, read, analyzed, and each leads nowhere. Detective Abberline reads them until the words blur together. He notices small details, phrases repeated, handwriting styles mimicked, patterns copied. Some are clever hoaxes, clearly written by reporters feeding the hysteria they helped create. But every so often, one letter feels different, quieter, colder, almost playful. Those are the ones he keeps in his desk drawer, separate from the rest. He begins to see the case differently. Maybe the Ripper doesn't need to kill anymore. Maybe the terror itself is his masterpiece. Every headline, every rumor, every frightened whisper, all proof that he still controls the city. He doesn't need blood to stay alive, he just needs attention. Outside, Whitechapel slowly changes. More patrols, better lighting. The police install new lamps on the corners where the bodies were found. Lodging houses are inspected, criminals catalogued. The murders forced reform through sheer horror. But no one says it aloud, because everyone knows reform came too late for the 5 women who died. Then, just as winter begins to lift, another rumor spreads. Jack the Ripper has been caught. A man named Aaron Kosminski, a disturbed Polish barber, is locked in an asylum. Some officers whisper that he fits the profile. He lived nearby, hated women, heard voices. But the evidence is thin, almost invisible. There's no confession, no proof. Others claim the killer was Montague John Druitt, a barrister who drowned himself in the Thames after the last murder. His suicide feels too convenient, too neat. The theories multiply. The truth vanishes beneath them. The city moves on, but the myth doesn't. Jack the Ripper becomes London's dark echo, a name that never dies. The letters keep coming for years, even decades, each claiming to be the real killer, each promising one last act, none ever proven real. The line between fact and fear blurs until it no longer matters which is which. Abberline retires, worn and hollow. In interviews, he's asked, "Did you ever discover who he was?" He answers the same every time. "No, and that's what haunts me. He was just a man, and that's what makes him terrifying." The letters, now faded and brittle, are stored in police archives, relics of a nightmare that refuses to fade. Tourists in modern London sometimes stand outside those same buildings, unaware that inside, in boxes marked Exhibit A, rest the words that once froze an empire. Time moves forward. Electric lights replace gas lamps. The alleys of Whitechapel become paved roads. Yet every few years, a new theory rises from the fog. A doctor, a prince, a painter, a butcher. The mystery breathes again, and with it, the voice of Jack the Ripper, whispering from the past. Catch me when you can. Chapter 5. The Hunt for the Ripper. The fog begins to thin over London, but the fear remains. Months have passed since the last murder, yet the city still feels haunted. The name Jack the Ripper has become legend, whispered in pubs, printed in penny novels, etched into the city's bones. The killings may have stopped, but Scotland Yard refuses to rest. The hunt is far from over. Inside the yard, rooms are buried under maps, notes, and autopsy sketches. Red pins mark each murder site like wounds on the city's skin. Detectives work by gaslight, eyes red from sleepless nights. They chase rumors through rain-soaked streets, following ghosts that vanish with the dawn. Leading them is Inspector Frederick Abberline, still determined to unmask the man who humiliated the Empire's finest police force. He knows the killer is out there somewhere, a man who once breathed the same London air, walked the same cobblestones, and slipped through their fingers like smoke. The investigation moves from theory to theory. Suspect to suspect. First, Montague John Druitt, a schoolmaster and barrister found drowned in the Thames weeks after the final murder. Some call it suicide, others call it escape. He was intelligent, secretive, and suffered from what doctors call hereditary insanity. For many, that's enough to mark him guilty. But there's no proof he ever set foot in Whitechapel. His death is simply too convenient. A tidy ending for a story with no end. Then comes Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber with a troubled mind. Neighbors say he muttered to himself, refused to eat food touched by others, and carried knives he never used for work. He's eventually committed to an asylum, declared insane. Years later, a police memo quietly names him as a prime suspect. Still, no confession, no witness, no certainty. The fog of doubt smothers every clue. Others join the growing list. Michael Ostrog, a thief and con man who vanished after the murders. Francis Tumblety, an eccentric American doctor known for his hatred of women and his disturbing collection of preserved organs. George Chapman, a barber-turned-poisoner who later kills 3 of his wives. Even Sir William Gull, Queen Victoria's physician, is dragged into the conspiracy theories, accused of covering up royal secrets in blood. Every suspect fits for a moment, but none fit completely. Scotland Yard is drowning in contradictions. Witnesses give conflicting descriptions: tall, short, foreign, local, clean-shaven, mustached. Every lead dissolves into fog. The city itself seems to be hiding the truth. And then there are the letters, still arriving, still mocking. "You'll never catch me alive," one says. "I'm too clever for you," another sneers. Abberline reads them late at night, staring at the red ink that has long since dried. Each word feels like a finger tapping on his shoulder, reminding him of his failure. By 1889, the official investigation begins to cool. The Ripper hasn't struck again, and Parliament is restless. The police are ordered to focus on new matters. But Abberline can't let go. He walks the alleys of Whitechapel long after the patrols have ended, tracing the same routes he believes the killer once walked. He studies the corners where blood once pooled, the doors that never quite open. He is chasing a ghost, and he knows it. Years pass. The case becomes the most famous mystery in the world. The Ripper has given birth to an entire industry of obsession. Reporters, detectives, and ordinary citizens all play the same hopeless game, trying to name the face behind the fog. Then, new technology rekindles old hope. Decades later, in the 20th century, scientists test DNA from evidence said to be found near one of the victims. The results point back to Kosminski, faint, incomplete, but enough to start headlines shouting, "Case solved." Yet, almost immediately, the doubts return. Chain of custody lost, contamination likely. Statistics argued, nothing proven. Once again, the Ripper escapes through time itself. Through all this, one truth remains. The murders forced change. Scotland Yard learns from its failure. Better coordination, better records, early forensics. The Ripper's shadow pushes criminal investigation into the modern age. The horror becomes a teacher. But the price was high. 5 women murdered, a city scarred, a mystery that outlived every man who hunted it. In his final years, Abberline is asked once more by a journalist, "Do you believe you ever knew who Jack the Ripper was?" He stares at the table, silent for a long time, then says quietly, "He was just a man." And that's what makes it terrifying. Because monsters can be killed, but men, ordinary, invisible men, can vanish into the crowd forever. The hunt ends not with an arrest, but with an understanding. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it looks like your neighbor, your barber, your friend. Sometimes it smiles politely and disappears into the fog. And that's why the story never ends. Each new investigator, each new theory, each new generation picks up the trail again, trying to finish what Abberline could not. But the truth remains lost in that same Whitechapel mist. Somewhere between fact and fear, science and story, stands the shadow of one man, and the city that made him immortal. Chapter 6. Legacy of the Fog. London breathes again, but it never forgets. The gas lamps that once burned over blood-stained alleys are gone, replaced by electric light. The cobblestones where women once fell are now paved roads, echoing with the hum of traffic. The East End has changed its face. But deep beneath the modern noise, something old still stirs. The shadow of Jack the Ripper never really left. A century has passed, yet his story still walks the fog. Every generation rediscovers him, retelling the same nightmare in a new voice. His name, written in red ink on a single letter, became the most infamous signature in criminal history. The man who vanished into the mist somehow became immortal. The murders did more than terrify a city, they reshaped it. In 1888, policing was guesswork, and justice moved slower than fog. But after the Ripper, everything changed. Scotland Yard built new systems of record-keeping, patrols became coordinated, and the world's first steps toward forensic science began. The failure to catch one man forced an empire to evolve. Detectives learned to read patterns, to study the psychology of crime. The phrase criminal profile was born in those dark Whitechapel streets. The Ripper case became the textbook for future investigators, a reminder that monsters can hide in plain sight if no one looks closely enough. But the legacy didn't stop at the police station. It reached the newspapers, the public, even Parliament. The rich could no longer pretend the East End didn't exist. The slums, once invisible, were dragged into the national spotlight. The murders forced London to see itself, its hunger, its poverty, its cruelty. Social reform followed, slow but steady. Better housing, cleaner streets, more light in the darkness. It was too late for Mary Ann Nichols. Too late for Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. But their deaths cracked open a system that had ignored women like them for generations. In their tragedy grew a small spark of change, and that spark lit a movement. The Ripper's victims became more than names in a file. They became symbols of the forgotten, the silenced, the unseen. In their memory, the city built a promise, never to let darkness go unnoticed again. Yet, even as the streets grew brighter, the fascination with the killer deepened. The mystery became entertainment. Novels, stage plays, films, documentaries. Every writer imagined a new face behind the knife, a surgeon, a prince, a painter, a mad priest. Each theory said more about its time than about the killer himself. He had become a mirror, reflecting whatever evil people needed to believe in. Modern technology tried to end the story once and for all. DNA tests on century-old evidence seemed to name a culprit: Aaron Kosminski, the troubled barber from the East End. For a moment, headlines screamed, "Case solved," but experts argued samples were contaminated, evidence uncertain. The fog of mystery rolled back in. Even science, it seemed, could not catch a ghost. And so the question remains, who was Jack the Ripper? A doctor? A foreigner? A man with a grudge against the world? Or simply one of the thousands of faces that passed unnoticed in London's crowded streets? Perhaps the answer has been lost forever, buried in the city's heartbeat, hidden beneath layers of time and smoke. But maybe the question itself is what keeps the story alive. Because Jack the Ripper was never just one man. He was the embodiment of the darkness that lurks in all great cities. That invisible space between civilization and chaos, where no light can reach. He forced London and the world to look at that darkness and admit it exists. In the end, his true identity matters less than his message. That evil can live anywhere. That monsters don't always wear horns. Sometimes they wear hats and walk home whistling. That fear itself can outlive the man who caused it. Today, tourists still walk the Ripper tours, tracing his path through the East End with guides holding flickering lanterns. They stand where the victims once stood, listen to the stories, and feel the chill of something that refuses to die. For a moment, the city feels like 1888 again. The mist swirling, the cobblestones glistening, the air thick with memory. And when the wind moves just right, you can almost hear footsteps behind you. Slow, steady, deliberate. Maybe it's imagination, or maybe it's what's left of him. The echo of a killer who became the world's most enduring ghost. Jack the Ripper changed London forever. He gave birth to modern crime investigation, exposed the rot beneath the empire, and left a scar that time cannot erase. He killed 5 women, but through them, he forced a city and a world to confront its own darkness. The case is closed, the files are dust, the names have faded, but the story still breathes, because every time the fog returns to London, so does he. Jack the Ripper, the killer who vanished into the fog but never truly left it behind. And that was the story of Jack the Ripper, the killer who vanished into the fog. More than 100 years later, his name still chills the world, and the mystery remains unsolved. If you liked this video, hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe for more dark true crime stories from history's shadows. And don't forget to turn on the bell icon so you never miss what's coming next.